Good morning, everyone. Let's get settled. Good morning. There's a new era of punctuality coming to TRUU. Please be seated. I can? The QR code?
Yeah, we look at these with fear and dread.
What is it for? Just tell me what it's for. QR code for donations? Oh, okay. Let me, the disaster relief fund. Okay, sure. Yeah. Hi, good morning.
I had a very long chat with Florence.
Nice.
The thing is, Florence was very focused, except for the trouble when she's driving someplace.
Yeah.
And then she's just
Yeah. Everyone, please be seated. We're going to get started. I think we're rolling, so we're doing our online friends a disservice here. They're getting very bored out there in the internet world. Good morning. Welcome to Two Rivers Unitarian Universalist Community. My name is Seth Brown, and I'll be serving as your worship associate today. And please note, our upcoming services are about to be displayed on the screen. We're delighted to welcome back Reverend Florence Caplow, Reverend Zenshin Florence Caplow. Our worship theme for the month is deep listening. What is listening with the heart? Today, Florence Caplow will lead us in an exploration of how we can cultivate a deeper capacity to listen with the heart to our own inner life, to each other, and to the world itself. Listening is sacred, and there is no greater gift that we can give to one another than our full, non-judgmental presence and listening. Listening deeply is love itself. If we have any guests who feel comfortable introducing themselves this morning and or being introduced, we invite you to do so now. If you prefer to sit quietly, I hope you feel our warm embrace. And for guests online, please use the chat to introduce yourselves. Anyone?
We're Steve and Kathy Michael. We have been Unitarians. I'm a third generation Unitarian. Kathy and I met in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was a long time in religious education and then member at First Unitarian Church in Madison, which is a great church. And when I proposed to Kathy and asked for her father's hand, Kathy was raised Jewish, and he said, well, okay, but you have to promise to not raise your children as Christians. And I said, oh, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Excellent. Welcome, Steve and Kathy. Yeah.
There's four of us here. Five of us here. Oh, I was counting myself. We were here for the Air Force Academy 50th reunion, and then we came to visit Teague and Claudia from Aurora, Prairie Unitarian Universalist Church. And we were joined by Ellie Long from Santa Monica. So we're all Unitarians. We met at SWIM, which is the Southeastern Women Institute in Miami, but it now is in Tampa. So if Hurricane Milton does not blow Tampa off the map, we will expect to see you there at the end of January.
There's no skiing except
Welcome. Oh, it's lovely to have so many guests today. This is great. Thank you all. I love the connections. As always, after the service, we invite everyone to join us for coffee and lively discussion. I want to express our gratitude to Thelma and Gary Zabel for serving as our last-minute hero setup hosts, and everyone else who helped, and Cindy Nett and Joe Markham, our coffee hour hosts. Much gratitude to Andrew Ferrier for learning to fly Zoom and YouTube, allowing people to join us online, and to Liza for operating our in-person slideshow. If you have a knack for technology and would be willing to learn to operate our Zoom and live stream, please see Paul after the service today. They have done amazing things with our technology, by the way. We are so much farther ahead than we were before the era of Paul and Misha, and I am really grateful for them for all that they've done. If you would like to connect to our community, please leave contact information on the back of your order of service. And we also invite those with pastoral or caring committee concerns to use the back of the order of service as well. I invite you to direct your attention to the announcements in your OOS. They begin on the front and continue on the back, and I'll highlight a few specific items. Sing with the TRUU singers on October 20th for a service on the music of life. Contact Paul at paul@truu.org email address and let him know you would like to sing with us, or come to the rehearsal after the service today. There will be a rehearsal after church today and a final rehearsal before the service on the 20th. There will be no rehearsal on the 13th. On Sunday afternoon, October 20th, we will celebrate LGBTQ voices and the arts. TRUU is hosting a UU Unicorn Coffee Hour following the closing performance of Queer Voices at TRUU. We need volunteers for rainbow-themed baked goods and coffee hour setup. Please speak with Misha after the service to contribute, or check the latest newsletter for a sign-up link and a link to show tickets. The book club will meet at Nancy Bo and Bill Flood's home on Thursday, October 24th at 5 p.m. Book of the month is How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immerwahr. There's a lot of consonants there. Contact Jan Quint for further details. Now, if you don't mind, please silence your phones, watches, and the like as we move into worship with a musical prelude by Misha Shope and Paul Dankers.
Music boxes have within melodies they carry with them. Once they open, music fills the air. Every person you have known has a song of their own. Once they open up, you'll hear what's there. It's not easy, you must listen with your heart for what lies hidden. There was a melody locked deep inside of me, but now it's free. It found a place embraced by harmony, sweet harmony. Love more than anything sing. Only love could break the spell. Now I know very well the love within myself.
Beautiful. And now I'm going to invite my wife, Ayana, to light the chalice while I read the chalice lighting. This is called Why We're Here by Eric Walker Wickstrom. Here today, in this place, and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. And now please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, and we will remain standing through our sung aspiration.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, when we see our faces in each other's eyes, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
And now please join me in our spoken unison covenant. Love is the spirit of this community, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Spirit of life, come
Please be seated. I gotta say, it's nice to not have to adjust the mic for my much shorter brother, in case anyone is confused on that front. Hope he's listening somewhere. Speaking of listening, so this is my reflection, and I called it Talking About Listening. Being asked to talk about listening is a bit like being asked to shout about whispering. When I told my spouse, Ayana, I'd been tasked with deep listening as a topic for TRUU on Sunday, she said, well, I don't remember what she said. I'm not sure, because I was already thinking about how a dog walk would be a good way to deeply listen to the sounds of the birds. But first, I had to choose a deep listening podcast to listen to on my walk. I chose an Andrew Huberman podcast about learning, a skill adjacent to listening. Did you know that 85% of what we've learned is through listening, not talking or reading? That one surprised me. I did have some takeaways, despite several people interrupting me. Something about the dog, I don't know, and the sound of garbage trucks passing. I think there were weed whackers and lawnmowers as well, but I was intent on listening to my podcast. Apparently, most of memory and learning is offsetting the forgetting process that naturally occurs with time. Can anyone relate to that? We rarely form new synaptic connections. Most of learning is strengthening or weakening our existing ones. Now, weakening neural connections sounds bad, but it's not what you would think. For example, the improvement in motor skills from a baby to an adolescent is in good part the weakening of connections, so-called synaptic pruning. Born with billions of synaptic connections between neurons, you only need the right millions to play the violin or score a touchdown. As for learning, one of the best ways to remember is to take a test shortly after consuming material. This was all part of this podcast. In fact, when it comes to retention, the clinical data is unambiguous. People who took a test shortly after hearing material once retained more over time than people who reread the material 3 times without taking a test. Let me say that again. People who took a test shortly after hearing material once retained more than people who reread the material 3 times without taking a test. And so I'm going to test you all later. That squared with what I'd heard about reflective listening. Repeating back to a partner or friend what you've heard without editorial curation was a little like taking a test. When I worked as a field instructor in a therapeutic wilderness program for troubled teens, we learned a form of nonviolent communication. The kids would, this is their terminology, bust an I feel statement around the fire at night in the format, I feel X when Y. I imagine in the future I'd like it if Z. The listener would then repeat that statement back to the speaker, who would feel heard. These I feel statements were a way of communicating the speaker's feelings instead of focusing on the actions or behaviors of the listener. The reflection back would allow for a softening between the two. The kids weren't great at this. As we'd unwind by the fire, our bare feet nearly touching the shimmering coals, I remember statements like, I feel angry when you're an idiot. I imagine I feel that way because I hate idiots. Ah, the feelings of youth. Easy to retain, but tough to reflect. As a younger person, and even sometimes now, I'm accustomed to thinking of deep listening as nodding at appropriate intervals while trying to lip read what few words I can gather in a crowded room, while compensating with enough eye contact to make the interaction uncomfortable for everyone. Now, this might be because according to the Soul Matters Worship, this might be okay because according to the Soul Matters Worship Associate materials, after listening to someone talk, we can immediately recall about 50% of what was said, even less if we didn't like the subject or the person. 1 hour after, we remember less than 20% of what we heard. So, no harm, no foul. I don't need to worry about you guys retaining too much of what I've said today. Letting things come and go like this can be a virtue, a practice even. I did a year of mindfulness training where I sat and watched my thoughts come and go. They did a lot of coming and not a lot of going. I tried to let them run themselves out non-judgmentally and without trying to let them run themselves out. I attempted to treat my thoughts and feelings like clouds passing across a placid sky, and there were 1 or 2 moments of blissful quiet, but there were many, many hours of not. Mostly, there was incessant and slightly anxious mind chatter. You want to be quiet? Says the mind. Great, let's talk about it. The other night, when Moby woke me up at 4 a.m., that's our dog, barking at bears in the yard, I thought, how cool would it be to be a deaf character in a movie like Coda or Children of a Lesser God, abiding in a cinematic, romanticized, sacred silence. Despite not hearing, the characters in these movies still seem to understand everything. Certainly, I'd prefer not to wake up 6 times a night to aggressive barking because the bears want to make chicken apple sausage out of our chicken coop and apple tree. But now, I was awake, my 50-year-old melatonin tank on empty, and then I heard the soft and liquid whoo, whoo, whoo of an owl in the night trees. Again, it came, whoo, whoo, whoo. Sorry, I don't do that very well. I listened deeply, and my heart smiled. This is the time in our service where we honor and acknowledge those we hold in our hearts this morning who are not here in this space, those we love who are facing challenges, those we love who are celebrating milestones, those we love who have passed away. By saying their names in this space, the TRUU community can hold your sorrow or joy as well. Please speak up so everyone can hear. Taryn Latimer. And for all those who haven't been named, who are also in our hearts. Now, please join with Reverend Florence in the spirit of prayer and meditation.
Good morning. First of all, I want to acknowledge the almost incomprehensible devastation affecting so many in the southeastern states from Hurricane Helene. I have been hearing all week from friends in North Carolina, including you. First of all, I want to acknowledge the almost incomprehensible devastation affecting so many in the southeastern states from Hurricane Helene. I have been hearing all week from friends in North Carolina, including UU ministers, who are suffering themselves, who don't have power 1 week after the hurricane, who are stranded due to destroyed roads, and have witnessed horrors. And have friends and family or members of their congregation experiencing even worse. I wanted to share a Facebook message from a friend, Myotai Treese, who is a Zen teacher in North Carolina, to give you a firsthand glimpse of one person's experience. Daytime. So almost no cell signal or internet at our house in Swanoa. It slows the process of figuring out next steps. We were able to pick up a month's worth of heart meds at the one small crowded pharmacy who are taking notes by flashlight of what they're owed. A nearby fundamentalist church is distributing food and water. We picked up some canned chicken and soup, and the worker and I became one religion of quick tears. Yesterday, I met one of the Mennonite disaster crew. A deeply genuine gaze passed between us mid-chit-chat, and the love that cannot be stopped seemed to fill space, change time, breath by breath. Because I know that so many of us want to help in some way at this time, we'll be sharing our Sunday collection today with the UUA Disaster Relief Fund. Or you can give directly to the fund, which is already dispersing support to the area. Secondly, I want to acknowledge that tomorrow, October 7th, is the 1-year anniversary of the Hamas attacks on innocents in Israel and the beginning of the Israeli response that has caused the deaths of more than 40,000 people in Gaza, many of them also innocents. And now the spreading of this conflict to multiple countries in the Middle East. All of us carry the weight of this. We are also in the time of the Jewish New Year, the start of the high holy days of reflection, which began earlier this week. Shana Tova to all of Jewish heritage, from me to you. For my pastoral prayer today, I want to share this hopeful and inspirational blessing by Rabbi Danya Rutenberg. And for us all, everybody, may it be a year of love and laughter and connection and inspiration, of learning and delight, of just action and righteous generosity, of truth-telling, creativity, bravery, and reaching out and gathering in, of solidarity and dignity and joy. And all of our collective liberations towards a more whole, more healed world, community by community, relationship by relationship. We are how we will get there. We will now have a time of silence and contemplation, and then Paul and Micha will offer a meditative song, Open My Heart.
Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give.
Our reading today is entitled Selections on Deep Listening by Thich Nhat Hanh. The Vietnamese Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh was a great teacher, writer, and peace activist. Here is some of what he wrote about the power of deep listening from the heart. The most precious gift we can offer others is our presence. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they bloom like flowers. The most effective way to show compassion to another is to listen rather than talk. Listen with only one purpose: to allow the other person to express themselves. Keep compassion alive during the whole time of listening. You have to be very concentrated while you listen. You have to focus on the practice of listening with all of your attention, your whole being, your eyes, ears, body, and your mind. If you just pretend to listen and do not listen with 100% of yourself, the other person will know it. If you know how to practice mindful breathing, then you will be able to sustain your compassion while listening. But first of all, listen with compassion. Compassion, that can bring transformation and healing. A bell of mindfulness, whether it is an actual bell or some other sound, is a wonderful reminder to come back to ourselves, to come back to life here in the present moment. The sound of the bell is the voice of the Buddha within. Every one of us has Buddha nature, the capacity for compassionate, clear, understanding nature within us. So when we hear the sound of the bell, if we like practicing mindfulness, we can respond to that intervention with respect and appreciation. In my tradition, every time we hear the bell, we pause, we stop moving, talking, and thinking, and we listen to the voice of the heart. In our Sangha at Plum Village, we have a porch we call Listening to the Rain Veranda. We made it specially for that purpose, so we could sit there and listen to the rain and not need to think about anything. Listening to the rain can help the mind come to stillness.
This year, we're using Soul Matters for our theme-based ministry with a different theme for each month. And I'm happy to see, I was very happy to see that our theme for October is deep listening. This is such a powerful topic and practice to explore together. I'm very glad that I'll be speaking twice this month, since, ironically, and I have to admit with some embarrassment, I seem to have a lot I want to say about deep listening. I so appreciated Seth's reflection earlier in the service on his own relationship to listening. He is also right. So much gets in the way of actually showing up for life as it is happening, and for showing up and really listening to one another. Even though, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, the most precious gift we can offer another is our presence. There used to be a lot of concern in the media about multitasking. And now it seems we just take it for granted that we might be eating breakfast while listening half-heartedly to our family members at the breakfast table, while checking the news on our phone, and perhaps even listening to a podcast. No wonder there is an epidemic of loneliness. This is one of just one of the many reasons that I am passionate about supporting religious communities, UU communities and Buddhist sanghas, and also supporting friends who are clergy in other traditions that might be very different theologically. I really believe in the vital role of community, as old-fashioned as that might sound. And although some people, for accessibility reasons, are listening to this online today via Zoom or YouTube or on some other day other than Sunday, most of you are here in person because of each other, because of the deep human need for connection, to be heard and to listen to each other fully, and with all that is troubling these days, to be inspired for the rest of your week. I do fear that perhaps on a societal level, we may be losing the art of listening and speaking, even to our friends. Studies across time, to the degree that people in the US feel connected socially, have shown a sharp drop, especially post-pandemic. What if we start to forget, or if we're young, never learn how to speak our hearts and listen with our hearts to each other? And I wonder if this is also contributing to our inability to listen to people around us who might have different lives and different views from ours. More and more we live and work in little enclaves of, quote, those like us, whatever our politics, whether those enclaves are online or even in the real world. The other becomes increasingly other, frightening, less than human. And I believe that this is happening to all of us, not just the people drawn to the far right of the political spectrum. Last weekend, I watched a documentary on Netflix that really went to the heart of this. It's called Will and Harper. Maybe you've heard of it? The Will in the movie is Will Ferrell. And honestly, and this shows you just how out of touch I am with popular culture, I was only vaguely aware of who he is as an actor. He's a long time, in the past, Saturday Night Live member and has made a whole bunch of movies, mostly, to be clear, kind of dumb movies. I think he'd even say so himself. Will Ferrell is not the kind of actor or comedian who portrays sensitive, soulful guys, but he is famous and beloved, instantly recognized by most people across the country, except for people like me. Harper Steele, the Harper in the movie, is Will Ferrell's longtime friend. They met years ago on the set of Saturday Night Live and became best buddies. But when they met, Harper was not known as Harper. In 2021, after more than 20 years of friendship between them, Harper wrote an email to Will and told him that she had transitioned and was now a trans woman at 59 years old, with kids who still called her dad and a new name. Harper had no idea how Will would react or if their friendship would survive. And this is where the documentary gets really, really interesting. Will doesn't turn away from his old friend, though he knows almost nothing, it appears, about why Harper chose this. It seems that maybe he didn't even know other trans people. Instead of turning away, he offers to do something for and with his friend. And to understand how big this offer is, you have to know another thing about Harper. In her former life, pre-transition, Harper loved to drive across the country, checking out small towns and spending time in American institutions like seedy biker bars, drag racing tracks, sports events, diners with all-you-can-eat specials, cheap motels. He, back in the day, loved to talk with ordinary people in those places, and as a man, he could do pretty much anything he wanted. But to do that as a trans woman, a different and terrifying story. Probably something that would no longer be possible in her new life. So Will calls up his friend, now Harper, and says, "What do you think? Want to take a road trip together?" And Harper says yes, even though it's scary. And they drive from New York to LA across the reddest parts of America, including to Harper's hometown in Iowa. And they decide to take along a film crew. And that's the documentary. More than half of the film is just the two of them sitting in Harper's woody station wagon, driving and being friends as they'd always been, or sitting in lawn chairs in a variety of rather inexplicable places along the side of the road with beer and potato chips, talking. And because their friendship is so deep and has continued across so much of their lives, Will can ask painfully foolish questions of Harper that would be pretty offensive to most trans people. And he begins to realize how little he knew of this person he called his best friend, and the cost of the huge secret she had to keep for years, even from Will. Because, like most trans people, Harper had known for a long time that living as a man was wrong for her, and the pain and isolation of this nearly killed her. On more than one occasion in the movie, Will, or sometimes both Will and Harper, broke into tears. The other half of the documentary is what happens when they go to Harper's formerly favorite kinds of places, including a biker bar in Oklahoma festooned with profane Republican signs. Every time this happened as I was watching, I, as an audience member, thought, uh-oh, this is not going to be good. And every time, with the one exception of a huge steakhouse in Texas, where there was a sort of social media storm, what I think will happen is not what happens. Harper, in every scene, is completely open about being a trans woman, from her first words with a stranger. And her deep voice also makes it clear, despite her rather wonderful vintage travel sense or fashion sense. Will learns to remind waitresses to call his friend ma'am, and they do. And as they go deeper and deeper into Red America, we see in real time people, after the first double take, after Harper says who she is, and sometimes after people have nearly fallen over themselves when they realize who Will is, accepting Harper, congratulating her, meeting her human to human, talking, listening. Even though I would guess that there were a few, maybe no liberals among them. What? My inner voice screamed. Really? In that scary biker bar in Oklahoma, Harper went in alone, in the dark, in her dress, wanting to test herself without Will by her side. Bad idea, I told the screen, panicking. And by the end of that night, a couple of Native men honored her with an improvised drum honor song, and I was crying. If you don't believe me, if this seems far-fetched or inexplicable, watch the movie. It will make you feel better about America, I think. And then, the very next morning, after watching the documentary, I decided to go for the first time to the Sunday meeting of the Friends, the Society of Friends, the Quakers here in town. For several years, I have been renting their building to lead silent all-day meditation retreats. And this small but beautiful light-filled building has been such a gift, surrounded by native plants that have been brought in by members of the congregation, with a huge old oak tree on the edge of the property. I have loved being in this space, which feels somehow imbued with all the silence it has held over the years. But I had never gone to the Sunday meeting. For those of you who don't know, Quaker, or as they prefer, Society of Friends meetings, are almost entirely silent, and people only speak if the Spirit moves within them. They are not exactly meditating, like I am and the other people with me are on my all-day retreats. They're listening intently to the still small voice within, to the voice of God, of the divine within the human heart. My friend and writing mentor, Scott Russell Sanders, wrote a beautiful essay about visiting a Quaker meeting in Indianapolis. The title is simply Silence. Let me share a bit with you. So George Fox was the founder of the Society of Friends, so he's mentioned here. And the whole essay is just lovely, but I'm just going to read this little part. To anyone glancing in from outside, we would have offered a dull spectacle. A dozen grown people sitting on benches, hands clasped in laps or lying open on knees, eyes closed, bodies upright or hunched over, utterly quiet. And your strength is to stand still, Fox wrote in one of his epistles, that ye may receive refreshings, that ye may know how to wait and how to walk before God by the Spirit of God within you. When the refreshing comes, when the Spirit stirs within, one is supposed to rise in the meeting and proclaim what God has whispered or roared. It might be a prayer, a testimony about suffering in the world, a moral concern, or a vision. If the words are truly spoken, they are understood to flow not from the person, but from the divine source that upholds and unites all of creation. And you may know that also the Society of Friends is one of the traditional peace churches, and they've been involved with peace and justice issues for, well, since the beginning, since their founding. Like Scott, last Sunday, I sat in that circle of strangers listening. And this was not as strange to me as it might be for some. I once figured, about 2 years of my life in silent retreat. Of course, that was not all at the same time. The week here, a week there, month here, month there, 2 months here, 2 months there. And over the years, I have less and less of an agenda when I go to practice in a silent retreat setting. Sometimes I say that the main reason I do silent retreats is to listen to the birds. Now, I realize that might sound sort of cute, but that's not really how I mean it. I really mean this, to listen to the birds. There's a famous line from William Blake, poet, and I've slightly altered it to make it include all of us. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to us as it is, infinite. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, these are the doors of perception. And silence is, in my experience, one of the best ways to open up the possibility of seeing, hearing, knowing the world and one's own heart as infinite. That's why it's been so important to me personally. But I don't think it needs to be as dramatic as sitting a month-long silent retreat, which not everyone can, and frankly, not everyone would want to do. Maybe it is just a matter of putting down our devices for a moment, taking a breath, and really listening. Listening to our own heart, our own life. Listening to the world's breathing, to a friend's tears or laughter, to this utterly and completely miraculous life as it unfolds.
Clarify this. There is a QR code. I'm about to talk about giving, and this QR code on the back is a way you can take a photo with your smartphone and then click on the link that appears when you do so, and that will take you to a place where you can give directly to the UUA Disaster Fund. We will now receive an offering for the support of this community and its work in the world. Our plate this Sunday will be shared with the UUA Disaster Relief Fund, which is already dispersing funds to those affected by Hurricane Helene. You are invited to give as generously and joyfully as you can. Online, you can make a secure donation by going to TRUU.org and clicking on the offering plate image at the bottom of the homepage. You can also mail your pledges to the address shown on the side or put them in the offering plate as we pass it this morning. And as always, we are so grateful for your generosity.
Receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
And now please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 112, Do You Hear?
Oh, my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land, do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain, do you hear, from the place, through the throng, through the crush, hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling thrill in your soul, From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend, do you hear, all the dreams, all the tears, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear,
Please be seated, and Reverend Florence will provide our benediction.
Dear ones, may you hear the music in your own heart. May the sounds of the wind and of the birds be a blessing to you. May you be deeply heard and deeply listen. May it be so, and blessed be.
The words of our chalice extinguishing are from Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body and spirit, and join hands for our sending forth song, One World Home by Jimmy Byrne.
Sunlight shines upon us all the same.